Clara loved her small town. Nestled between hills and a river, it was the only world she knew. She felt safe there. That summer, the air grew still. The usual symphony of birdsong faded. At first, it was just a bird or two missing from the chorus. Then it became a chilling silence. Clara felt it in her bones. One evening, she saw a fox in her backyard. It wasn't afraid. Its eyes, usually bright and alert, were clouded, almost glazed over. It stared at her, a low growl rumbling in its chest. Then it turned and melted into the shadows. Clara shivered. This wasn't right. Animals were acting strangely everywhere. Dogs became aggressive, their playful barks turning into menacing snarls. The townsfolk whispered, their unease growing with each passing day. Clara felt drawn to the woods. The air grew colder as she walked. A faint, earthy smell reached her, like freshly turned soil. Ahead, she saw a clearing bathed in an unnatural light. As she approached, the hairs on her arms stood on end. A circle of animals surrounded a towering oak tree. Wolves stood shoulder to shoulder with deer, their natural instincts forgotten. At the base of the oak, a figure stood shrouded in darkness. Clara couldn't make out its features, but she could feel its power. It raised its arms and the animals grew still. A low, guttural chant echoed through the clearing. Clara knew she shouldn't be there. The chanting grew louder, the air thick with an unnatural energy. Terror lent speed to her feet. Clara ran as fast as she could, the sound of her own ragged breathing echoing in her ears. She could feel the eyes of the animals on her back, their hot breath on her neck. She didn't dare look back. Bursting out of the tree line, she didn't stop running until she reached the safety of her home. She slammed the door shut behind her, her heart pounding in her chest. The next morning, the world woke to chaos. The animals, once docile and predictable, were now instruments of something dark and primal. Birds rained from the sky, their beaks transformed into sharp, pointed weapons. Clara watched in horror as the world she knew crumbled around her. Days turned into weeks, the relentless assault showing no sign of abating.
Clara, haunted by the memory of the ritual in the woods, knew she had to find a way to stop it. She sought refuge with a small group of survivors, each one touched by the horrors they had witnessed.
There was David, a former park ranger who knew the wilderness like the back of his hand.
Sarah, a doctor who used her skills to tend to their wounds.
And old Mrs. Henderson, who surprised them all with her knowledge of ancient folklore.
Clara knew in her heart that this was the entity she had seen in the forest, the one responsible for the chaos engulfing the world. They needed to find a way to defeat it. The journey was perilous. The remnants of humanity were scattered and afraid, forced to live in hiding from the ever-present threat of animal attack. Clara and her companions faced countless dangers, from packs of feral dogs to flocks of razor-beaked birds. Finally, after weeks of searching, they found it. An old abandoned library, hidden away in the mountains. Days turned into nights as they pored over ancient texts, searching for any mention of the Warden of Shadows or how to defeat it.
Just when their hope began to dwindle, they stumbled upon a passage, its words almost lost to time. It spoke of a counter-ritual, a way to weaken the Warden's hold over the animal kingdom.
The original clearing was eerily familiar. The same towering oak stood at its center, its branches now bare and skeletal. Clara took her place at the center of the clearing, her eyes fixed on the oak tree. This was it. The clearing was bathed in a blinding light, the very air thrumming with power.